In this video, now we're going to talk about how to loop through advanced dictionaries. So how to loop inside of a loop, for lack of a better term. Okay, so I want to go back and I want to talk about normal looping through a dictionary for 1 minute before we jump into advanced looping. So remember, in this first example, we had created a dictionary with a string as a key and a decimal as a value, and we just put some values inside of it. Then in our for each loop, we had to use that new word or keyword called key value pair with the open and closing carets, and we had to make sure that the key and value pair type matched. Then we have KVP, which is a temporary variable, and it stands for key value pair, and then that's the value that's going to change for each time. The keyword of in, and then in what dictionary. So the dictionary's name was bills to pay. And then inside of our curly braces, each and every time we'd have this KVP temporary variable that's going to take on the whole entire dictionary element. So it would take the whole box off the shelf, put it inside of itself, and then we can utilize this temporary KVP variable. Now inside of our for each loop, when we talk about the KVP, we have to use a couple more keywords to talk about what aspects of this key value pair we want to deal with. And we use them as kvp.key and kvp.value. And what that did is the kvp key would take the label from the box, so that is the cable, the string, and the KVP value would take what's inside of that box, so the 135.5. And then for each and every time, it would then cycle through and go to the next box. Now, let's talk about an advanced dictionary setup. So we created this dictionary in our previous videos, and so we're going to still utilize it now. Okay. So what we did here was we just created a dictionary with a string as a key and a list string as our value pair. And then we are keeping track of the stores that we're going to go shopping at. That's going to be the key. And the items that we're going to buy at each store is going to be our value pair. And in our last videos, we went ahead and set that up and we filled in all the items that we're going to buy at each different store. So we're going to assume that you guys have already watched those videos. Now for the looping part. So we are still going to use a for each loop because I don't really picture you guys changing any of these elements inside of the dictionary. Okay, so for each. Now we're going to still use that key value pair, open and closing carets, and we still need the key and the value pair data type. So this one is going to be string, and then a comma, and list string is going to be the value, the data type of the value. I'm still going to use KVP as a temporary variable name. Again, this could be anything, but by default, usually people put KVP, the keyword of in, and then in what the dictionary we're talking about, and the dictionary's name is going to be shopping list. Now, just like last time, we have this KVP variable that's going to be a temporary variable that's only going to exist in our for each loop, and for each different time it loops, it's going to take the actual value and key, so the whole dictionary element, and put it inside of itself. Now, inside of our for each loop, we're going to use this KVP variable. And last time, what we did was we did a console.writeLine kvp.key and console.writeLine kvp.value. But when we actually take a look at that, the KVP key would be a text string of grocery, and the KVP value would be this whole list string. And have you ever tried to output a whole list string by itself? Well, here's what it gives you. Of course, the first console.writeLine will say grocery, and then the second console.writeLine will give you system.collections.generic.list '1 square brackets system.string, which is a mouthful, can't even say that, mouthful saying, hey, something is really wrong, because you can't output a whole list at one time. So we can't just use KVP as it is. So don't do that. Now, instead, how do we output a list? And you might have to go back to your list videos earlier in this course, but I'll kind of give you a secret. We used a loop, right? So we have to loop through this list. And the type of loop we're going to use is just a for each loop. And for each what? Now, think about it. This is where it gets a little tricky here. We're talking about the string list that lives inside of the box marked grocery. Now, I want to know the data type of that index of 0 that holds an apple. Okay, so the data type of the apple is just a string. So we're going to put string in, and then a string, and then the variable name that we're going to keep track of. So that's the temporary variable name item in kvp.value. Because remember, kvp.value is going to be that list string. So now we can loop through every string inside of that. So now we're creating this loop inside of a loop, which kind of confuses a little people, but we'll kind of try to go through it as much as possible. Inside of our for each loop, I'm just going to have that console.writeLine with a temporary item. So what does it look like? So when we first start it up, the kvp.key is going to be a grocery, because that's our first element inside of our dictionary. Then we go inside of our next for each loop, and it's going to start going inside of this list of strings, okay? And the item for the first time is going to be that text string of apple, so that's going to output. Then it's going to be a text string of pear, and that's going to be output. Then it's going to be a text string of banana, and then it's going to output. And then it's going to come to the end of our list, which will stop this inner for each loop that's looping through our kvp.value. That will stop, right? And then we come to the bottom of our for each loop on the outer one, and it's going to say, hey, I'm ready for the next key and value pair. So our key and value pair is going to go inside of our kvp variable, and that's going to be our close. So when we go inside of it and say console.writeLine kvp.key, now it's going to be a text string of close. Then we start our for each loop, and we're going to go through each item inside of the list of strings. So it's going to output shoes on one line, socks on one line, tie on one line, shirt on one line, and then it's going to be done with our list. So it's going to loop again and grab our next element, which is going to be pet. Then we're going to output ball and bowl. And it's going to do this for every single dictionary element inside of our whole dictionary. So let's go to our code. I think it's a little bit easier to understand when you guys see it in action. So we're back inside of our advanced dictionary solution that we created in the previous videos, where we already created a dictionary called shopping list, which has a string and a list string. We already created a grocery list and a close list. We filled them in, like we said in the presentation earlier. Then we created a few other ones. So we created a pet list and filled those in. And we created a brand new one called electronics and filled that one in as well. Now we did create these little for loops and for each loops along the way, showing that you could target that list in particular. But that's not going to be really good for when we want to list through all the dictionary elements all the time. Okay? So let's go down here at the bottom, and I want to loop through the whole dictionary at once. And that can't be really accomplished with this, because this is always going to be changing, right? So you can't really do it that way. So we're going to start with a for each loop. Open closing parentheses, open closing curly braces, and split those apart. Now inside of here, this is going to be where our key and value pair go. Open closing carets. We have to make sure we get this right. The key is a string, then a comma, and then our value is a list, open closing carets, and string inside of it. All right, so that is going to be our key and value pair. Now we have our temporary variable name, so I'm just going to put it as kvp, our keyword of in, and then in what's the name of the dictionary? Well, that's going to be our shopping list. Oops, hit enter twice and I put that on the next line. There we go. Shopping list. Okay, now I want to make this clear because this is going to loop through each dictionary element. All right, so right now, how many dictionary elements are there? There's going to be 4, I think. Let me make sure. There's 1 grocery list, 2 clothes. We came down here, 3 pet store, and 4 the electronics store. Okay, so there's gonna this for each loop right now is gonna run 4 times. So you can almost think of this as once for each key. All right, now I'm gonna put inside of here a console.writeLine, open closing and a semicolon. And for this, I'm just gonna put our KVP dot and then a key, because that's going to be that property and tell us the key of each one. Now, before this for each loop, just to kind of give us a visual break, I'm going to put another console write line, and I'm just going to make it some dashes go across the screen. And I just want you guys to visually see where this starts and where this stops at. All right, and in front of that, I'm going to put a \r\n, and might as well behind it a \r\n. So this is going to press return, give me some dashes, and press return. Let's see what this looks like. All right, so here's our visual break. So it says grocery, clothes, pets, electronics, because these are the 4 keys that exist inside of this dictionary of shopping list. All right, so far, it's just like the first time when we looped through a normal dictionary. Now, I want to show you the wrong way of doing this, but I'm going to tell you, this is wrong, so don't do it. Console.writeLine, open closing and a semicolon, and kvp.value. So this is the way we did it before when we were just looping through a normal dictionary. And when we do this, this is where we get that error message where it just says system.collections.generic.list '1 square bracket system.string, because you're trying to output a whole list at once, and that's not how lists work. So this will not work. All right. So instead of this, and I'm just going to go ahead and comment that out so we don't have to do it, this is where we have to create a second for each loop that will cycle through each string in our list string. All right. So we have to create another for each loop. Open closing parentheses, split that apart. Open closing curly braces and split those apart. Now this gets a little tricky. So we need to know the data type. So the list is holding strings. So one element is a string. Then we have to think of a name for it. So these are going to be things that we're going to buy. So I'm just going to call them an item. Keyword of in. Now this is where the list name comes in. Okay, usually this is the list name. But what is the list name? That's going to be that kvp.value. All right, so kvp.value is the actual string list for that particular key. Then inside of here, just a console write line, and I'm just going to put in the item value. All right, so let's take a look at this. It's going to be a little bit hard to read right now, but we're going to fix this in 1 second. But it's going to be grocery, apple, pear, banana, clothes, shoes, socks, ties. But it's kind of hard to see what's going on. And I kind of want you to see an easier visual way of this. So what I'm going to do here is in front of the item, I'm going to put a text string and then a plus sign for concatenation. And I'm going to put maybe 5 or so dashes. So what I want to show then is these are underneath that key. All right, so this is going to be a little bit easier to see. So these items right here are underneath the grocery. These items are underneath the key of cloths or clothes. These items right here are going to be pet store, and these items right here are going to be electronics. So I want to walk through the loop because I think this is probably the most confusing thing. So our for each loop will start, and our KVP value is made. Our KVP key is going to be our first thing, and our first item in our list is going to be grocery. So that's going to get put out to our console here. Then we start an inner loop. Now this loop right here is going to loop 3 times, once for each string inside of our list of strings that is associated with our groceries. So this is going to say the first time through, the item is going to be an apple. So it's going to be output. It's going to come to the closing curly brace and it's going to say, hey, give me that next item in your list. And then I'm going to output it. And that's a banana, right? That's right here. Then I'm going to come to the closing curly brace, and it's like, I'm ready for your next item. And then it's going to take in the value of banana and output that. And then it's going to come down to our closing curly brace and say, hey, you don't have any more items in your list. I'm going to be done. And this for each loop will finish. We come to this closing curly brace down here, and it says, hey, I'm ready for my next item. So it bounces back up and says, KVP is ready for its second dictionary element. And that's going to be our close. So the key is going to be output once right here, and that's going to be close. Then we get trapped inside of our for each loop again, right? And it says, hey, I have a box called item, and I want your first string inside of your list of strings. That's going to be shoes. It comes to the closing curly brace. It says, give me that next one. That's going to be socks. Closing curly brace, give me that next one, ties. Give me that next one, shirt. You don't have anything else, so this for each loop is done. I come to the closing curly brace, and then I'm saying, hey, KVP is ready for your third element inside your dictionary. What is the key? I'm going to output it. That's pet. I'm going to go inside my for each loop, and I'm going to create a box called item. Then I'm going to say, ready for my first value. That's going to be ball, and I'm going to output it. Closing curly brace. Give me that next item. Bowl. Right there, right? And then it says, you don't have any more items inside of you, so I'm going to close out this for each loop. I'm going to come to the closing curly brace of this one, and it says KVP is ready for the fourth item in your list. Give me the key. That's electronics. I'm going to output that right here, right? And it goes right here on our terminal, on our console. Then we come inside of our for each loop, and it says, I have a box called item. Give me your first element in your string list. It says PS5. Loops through and says, give me your next one. It's a nest. Give me your next one. It's a car radio. Give me your next one. Oh, you don't have anything else. So I'm going to close this for each loop and stop this for each loop. Come to the closing curly brace. It says, hey, KVP is ready for your next item. Oh, you don't have any more items? Then I'm going to close out this for each loop too, and that ends the program. So this will loop through every single key and every single item inside of your list. And the great part is, this will work for arrays as well. So the only thing you really have to change for it is this key value pair is the list string. You have to put string array. Of course, the dictionary has to be that as well.